Them Gator boys stay hot in basketball and football.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Friday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. Also, I'm going to let you know this now. We will have a bonus show tomorrow. We're expecting to have a bonus show tomorrow. I'm supposed to sit down later on today with Leif Thulin, who is host of Locked On NBA Big Board. And so we're going to talk about the Florida Gators in the NBA draft. And we'll get to hear about Walt. We'll ask about Condon and see what's up with that. And we'll see what Leif thinks about coming back or not. But before we get to Leif tomorrow, today we are talking about the Florida Gators maybe being the hottest school on the planet right now. You had basketball win the national championship, but really, when we're talking about who's hot, who's running hot, and where it started, it kind of started with football, right? It kind of started with football. The last month of the season just being scorching, getting recruits, recovering your class, and then rolling into basketball. Look, we can say that yes, basketball winning the national championship was, of course, the supernova there. But it kind of started with football. And I was thinking about that while I was prepping this. But we're going to talk a lot about it. There have been predictions put in by On3 for A.J. Brown to commit to the Florida Gators. A.J. Brown is, of course, the Ohio Bobcats guard. He is the older brother of Florida Gators freshman guard, Isaiah Brown. Okay? And A.J. Brown hit the portal about 8-9 days ago. Hit the portal and entered the portal with a do not contact tag. And we talked about this either the day he hit the portal or the day after he hit the portal. We talked about it where we were saying, hey, entering with a do not contact tag does not mean that he knows where he's going to school. It means that he's probably got a group of schools that he's interested in. And that's that, especially with basketball. I understand with football, oftentimes it's different. You enter the do not contact tag, 12 hours later, you're with another school. It's clear what happened. Basketball, we've seen it happen more often where they enter with the do not contact tag. Then they take their time, go on their visits, do whatever. Basketball is way more lax, okay? Part of that is just because there's way more, I think, opportunity to hit the portal and find a spot where you really fit and mesh. And I think that teams and players like that patience, right? I mean, Todd Golden spoke about it, I think it was before the Sweet 16. It might have been before the Elite 8 game, where he was like, look, I don't know why so many kids have already committed. Like it was before the Sweet 16 thing. Before the Sweet 16 game, I think. Because I remember Todd Golden saying like there's double digit teams remaining. The best double digit teams in the country are still remaining in this tournament. They're focused on that. They're not recruiting a ton right now. And so why would you commit and miss out on being with one of the elite programs? And I get it, right? And we've seen a lot of people take their time. Look, Xavier Lee was between Florida, St. John's, and Kansas for most of the time he was in the portal. And it still took a little while for him to get the answer and figure things out. It's fine. Basketball takes a while. A.J. Brown entered with the do not contact tag over a week ago. When he entered the portal, everybody went, okay, well, Florida has to be the favorite, right? And now they are publicly the favorite. We talked about this before, 6'4", 210, older brother of Isaiah Brown, averaged at Ohio this past year 13.2 points per game, 3.2 rebounds per game, 1.1 assists per game, 1.3 steals per game, an effective field goal percentage of 57.4%, which is a very, very good effective field goal percentage, especially for someone that shoots threes, right? Like he shot 38.8% from three. It's a very good effective field goal percentage because that means obviously he's shooting a good clip. Like if your effective field goal percentage is near 60%, it means that you are doing a good job of hitting those shots. Effective field goal percentage, of course, weighs made threes more than twos. But one of the things with AJ Brown that I thought was important, and we talked about with a few of the portal guys that Florida was at least kicking the tires on earlier. A few of the portal guys that we talked about was a lot of those teams were slow teams, right? I don't know if you really call a slow team down tempo. I know we go up tempo. But with those slowed teams, those slower offenses, and I do think that that means that there's going to be an adjustment to play in a new style. If I'm not used to running in transition consistently, if I'm not used to attacking, if I'm not used to trying to find a shot quick, move around, and especially with Florida, you're going to be moving a lot. It's not going to be, just spot up, figure it out. You're going to be moving a lot. And we talked about that style and how a lot of these guys might not be a fit for that because it is a change. I get it. A lot of people maybe don't think so, but I think pace in basketball is more important than pace in football. In football, it's like, oh, well, he comes from an up-tempo team. He knows how to work on the fly. If you come from a slowed down team, it doesn't mean anything bad, right? Most teams probably do go slowed down for most of the time. But in basketball, it does matter. Because that often dictates the flow of the entire game. If you're running up court and down court more often, then you're going to get tired more often or going to get tired quicker if you're not used to it. Luckily, AJ Brown is used to it because AJ Brown played at Ohio, which adjusted tempo was 43rd in the country, and their average possession length on offense was 13th in the country. Both of those numbers are faster than Florida. Florida's adjusted tempo was 57th in the country, so about 14 spots behind. And average possession length was about, 28 spots behind because it was 41st in the country. So he's used to that up-tempo style play. If anything, he's going to slow down a little bit when he gets to Gainesville, if he gets to Gainesville. Florida landing him would be huge. You landed Xavier Lee. You've got Denzel Aberdeen back. You've got Alex Condon is declared for the NBA draft, and Ruben Chinyelu is declared for the NBA draft, which that one was a shocker. Both have said that they are maintaining their college eligibility, and they can come back. And I would expect that if they come back, it would be to Florida because why wouldn't you? Right? Like if you just won the national championship as a starter and you declare for the NBA draft to get your grade back, why wouldn't you come back to that school that you just won a national championship with, right? So I would expect them both back. I do expect them both back. I think for part of it, for declaring is also you get to know what the NBA thinks you need to work on. For Condon, they can say, hey, man, you just got to prove to us that you can shoot the jumper and be more consistent, and that's it. Chinyelu, they could say, hey, you got to develop some semblance of an offensive game. Walter Clayton Jr. tested the market, came back, tested the NBA, came back. Colin Castleton tested the NBA, came back. It happens every single year. You're going to continue to see it. It's a great thing, honestly. I love it. I expect people to do that. So I love it there. I look at him as a 2. I look at AJ Brown as a 2 or a 3. And I've said this before. I think it was the past 2 shows. I'm pretty sure I've said it, where I could see Denzel Aberdeen being a 2 or a 3 in this team because it's that wing that's running in transition. That's what you're doing a lot. You're a 3-and-D wing that runs in transition. I see that happening as well. With Aberdeen, I think he can do it, and he's got the size and skill set to do it. He's still going to get his touches no matter what. I think that he's got that size and skill set that he could do that. We are going to flip to football for the rest of this show because we got some moves happening for the football team. We'll talk about that with Locked On Gators. Did you know that your Fire TV stick is also an Xbox? It is. Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles like EA Sports College Football 25, which I've gotten hundreds and hundreds of hours in. Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which I have not played in a long time, and Avowed, as easily as you stream your favorite TV shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. It is. Like, again, I don't have an Xbox. but I have played on my Fire TV stick. I've said I'll live and die by the Fire TV stick. I love it. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV locked on to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller are required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and the Fire TV Cube. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free. Wherever it's in the podcast and on YouTube. And we're going to talk about the transfer portal here. The Florida Gators, by the way, are at 86 scholarships right now with the return of Gregory Smith III. Assuming, again, we still, at the time of recording this, have not gotten official confirmation. We got the reports. We had quite a few reports come out, and you could take that as accepting it. Not gonna argue with anybody, take it as you will. But there are 86 scholarships, but they are still going to do things in the transfer portal. This is not a thing where it's just like, oh, well, we're over, so we're just going to call it a day. Hell no, that ain't happening. Now, the Florida Gators are setting up an official visit with Joshua Horton, Miami interior defensive lineman. And Joshua Horton entered the portal a little less than a week ago, if I'm not mistaken. He entered the portal, and he probably did it because he wants to leave a clown show program. I think that's what it is. I think Joshua Horton was like, you know what? I want to be at a serious program. You look at his list and you see a couple of serious programs on it, right? You got on that list of where he's going to be speaking to and who he's going to be involved with: Florida, Auburn, Georgia, Missouri, South Carolina, and Georgia Tech. 6 schools that we just named: SEC, 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 team that beat Miami late in the season. Serious programs there. And again, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Georgia Tech, Missouri, and Auburn, all 6 of them are programs where, you know what I'll say? I'm gonna scratch that. I'm not gonna cap. Remove Auburn from it. And the other 5 schools are schools where their defensive line play has been pretty nice, pretty good, consistent NFL talent. Auburn gets a couple guys every now and then. Derek Brown a few years back. They get their guys. It's once every other year, once every 3 years, whatever it may be. But they've done a good job of adding talent to the defensive line. It's often been guys Florida's recruiting. Is what it is there. But Joshua Horton is looking for a serious program, and Florida is one. Okay? I will say that 6'5", 295 pounds, size-wise, he could play any spot on this defensive line, right? I don't think he would play much of the nose tackle considering how freaking big the Florida Gators interior defensive line is. I do think that he could maybe be in a light situation, a nose tackle. But as far as being an every down nose tackle, no. Also important to note that Joshua Horton dealt with an ankle injury for basically the whole season last year, kept him limited. But we have talked about the Florida Gators potentially looking to add an interior defensive lineman in the transfer portal this time around. We talked about, and look, I think that this defensive line is very talented, right? I do. I think it's very talented, immense talent throughout. It's just young. And so we've been talking about, hey, will the Florida Gators maybe look at adding an interior defensive lineman that has been in college for a bit that can come in and be a depth piece? Because don't forget, you're not going to get a guy who's expecting to come in and start. Because if you come to Florida as a defensive lineman in the transfer portal this year and you are expecting to start, buddy, you are just grossly misled by your own brain. Because you're not going to come here and start. You're not. It's not a knock on you. You're not going to do it. Anybody. There's nobody that's going to come in and think, oh yeah, I'm going to come in and start. So if significant playing time is a deciding factor in this, then I would say that Florida is probably not going to walk away with this one, right? If significant playing time is a deciding factor. If, I'm going to get 10 to 13 snaps per game, and I'm going to get my reps, and I'm going to be able to put out some film this year and maybe earn a starting spot for next year, then that's great. Because Joshua Horton redshirted 2023, again, had injuries last year and was limited. He's got multiple years of eligibility. So he's someone that can come in and be a depth piece right away and then compete for a starting spot in 2026. If that's a path that Florida can sell him on, then so be it. And look, I know we've typically on this show said that there are two good portal acquisitions, right? A guy who's been in college for no more than 1 year, and we look at him as a multi-year piece, or a guy that's got proven production at his previous spot and is looking to come in and, or, I mean, hey, if you can get a guy that has proven production and isn't looking to come in and start, great. But I will also say this: Joshua Horton doesn't have that proven production. He does not fit the been in college for no more than 1 year criteria. But we also said something a few months back that was, I don't really care about my opinion on players. If Gerald Chapman looks at a defensive lineman and says, I can develop him and I can make him a good SEC starter quality defensive lineman. If Gerald Chapman says that, so be it. Dude gets paid a hell of a lot more than I do. Dude's better at it than I am, right? At identifying that talent. Got NFL teams calling for him, other SEC teams calling for him. He's gotten the pass of whoever you want, go get. And if you think you can make him work, it doesn't matter what I think. Gerald Chapman, Will Harris, both had that with me. Okay? And obviously Will Harris is no longer here. But both those guys had it with me where if you think they're quality, I'll shut up. Even if I don't like them, I'll shut up if you think they're good. Because I respect their opinion that much. And Joshua Horton is visiting Georgia today. He is going to have a visit with Florida. We don't know when that will be. Hasn't been set yet, but I would imagine it would be in the coming days. I think of this OV would be, a day or two and then move on. But this is the thing again. Florida in the winter portal was looking for players on the interior of the defensive line, and now they're doing it. We've always expected them to do that. They'll get rid of some. I would expect one of the receivers to leave in the portal because you got to clear. If you get Joshua Horton, then you got 87 scholarships, and you got to clear 2. I would expect a receiver to leave in the portal, maybe. Anything else? I really, maybe an O-lineman depth piece. I honestly don't know. But I'm not too concerned. Anybody that leaves would be bottom of the roster at this point. Maybe it's a quarterback that is there. You got 4 right now that are scholarship quarterbacks, so maybe there. But yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned with it regardless. Again, even if Joshua Horton comes to Florida, I don't expect him to be a major contributor. I would be happy, though, adding a depth piece that's been in college for a few years. And I say been in college for a few years because if I say experience, you're going to bring up snap count. And for me, it's more than just snap count. I think being in college, going through the process, going through adversity, because if you're in college, if you're playing college football, whether or not you're a starter or not, or you don't touch the field, you're going through some sort of adversity at some point, right? And I think having that in the room is important. I think it's huge. And so if you can get Joshua Horton, great. If not, so be it. It's not a backbreaker, but it's extra credit, right? It'd be a nice addition. But if you don't get him, I'm not going to be heartbroken. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be upset. It is what it is. We are going to talk about some high school recruiting because the Florida Gators got a hell of a lot of recruiting prediction machine things from On3. We'll talk about those in just a second with Locked On Gators. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. To wrap up today's show, we are talking about a slew of recruiting predictions from On3 lately because a bunch of them came in. We had, I think, 2 of them yesterday, one the day before, and one like last week. You had a bunch of them come in lately, okay? And some of them really enticing. A couple of them really interesting. And one of them, I've spoken to many people who think he's vastly underrated, okay? First one we're going to talk about is 4-star interior defensive lineman Valdon Sohn. maybe Sunny. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I didn't find pronunciation when I looked it up, or reliable pronunciation when I looked it up. But we're just gonna call him Valdon, okay? Unanimous 4-star. So he's a 4-star on 3, 24/7, ESPN, and Rivals. When we say unanimous, that's what we're talking about. Those 4. So he's a 4-star on 3, ESPN, 24/7, Rivals. 6'3", 6'4", depending on where you look. Some places outright list him as 6'3.5", and even then, I think like, okay, they're just it's in between 6'3" and 6'4". It's not probably exactly 6'3.5". 320 pounds, but from Sweden. Yeah, Sweden, chocolate. I think that's how they say it. They got chocolate, but from Sweden, sick athlete. Let's just throw that one. Sick athlete, freak athlete on the interior of the defensive line. His 3 hottest schools right now are Florida, Oklahoma, and Nebraska, which is interesting that that's your top 3. I feel like those 3 schools are almost never the 3 schools in competition. I feel like, we've seen Florida and Oklahoma a couple of times in recent years, especially, Chris McClellan a few years back. I can't remember the defensive lineman. His first name's Jay. I don't remember his last name. But I remember being a huge fan of his film and wanting him to be a Gator. But you've seen Florida and Oklahoma go at it a few times in the past few years, especially for defensive linemen, apparently. Nebraska, Florida, I don't remember the last time that they truly were going head-to-head in the top 3 for a recruit. But Valdon is with PPI Recruits, which, couple notes, PPI Recruits is an international recruiting pipeline that Florida's gotten Noah Portniagan from. I think Onus Conan Bani was also part of it, and maybe Enoch Wangwe. Enoch might have been part of it, or he might have been part of another international group. That's one that Florida has a reputation. 2, I do think it's very important to have that reputation with the people that bring in international players. We've talked about, having that pipeline with IMG, having a pipeline with this school, that school, whatever it may be. We've talked about that before, and that is important. I look at having a relationship with PPI the same way. We've talked about football before. And I'm going to go off on it. It's going to be a minute. Just sit tight. But I've talked to people before about how football is a growing sport across the world. Like the NFL is playing games in Brazil, Germany, Mexico, England. Like they're going all over the place. Ireland, going all over the place because it's a growing sport. There's a full league in Brazil. Okay. So there's a full league in Brazil too. So it's important to have these pipelines with international middlemen, we'll call them. I don't know what to technically call them, because as this sport's growing, we're getting better athletes that are learning the game. And with football, we often talk about having better athletes. Like that's how some teams just straight up out athlete others. And so having the pipeline with the place that gets international athletes to come to you to be coached and developed. Like, again, great athletes are typically pretty raw when they get here, but their ceiling is incredibly high. And so if you can have those great athletes outright start with, oh, hey, if I do work with PPI, then maybe I'll get Florida. That's huge for Florida as a recruiting pipeline. And Valdon could be just another player in that. 4-star safety CJ Hester is another name in there. He's a 4-star everywhere, except he's a 3-star on 24/7. 6'1", 175, which obviously means he's going to need to gain a bit of weight there. 6'1", 175 is thin. And an interesting note here, which before we even talk about that, Florida, Georgia, Auburn, Syracuse, Iowa, UCLA, and Texas are the schools in that. Syracuse and Fran Brown are at the top. Not surprising. Fran Brown has a tremendous relationship as a DB guru and developer and recruiter, and so it makes a lot of sense that he'd be in there. The Gators are recruiting CJ Hester to play corner. And if you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, you probably have heard this before, and if you haven't, you're going to hear it again. You're going to hear it many times throughout. My usual stance on guys that play safety in high school and are being recruited to play corner, or guys that play corner in high school and are being recruited to play safety is, and I say this with Florida specifically, I'm not saying it in general, I'm saying it with Florida specifically under Billy Napier. I feel like when they've had these guys where they recruit you as a safety and they tell you, yeah, but we view you as a corner. Or if you're a corner and they say, yeah, we view you as a safety. I look at you and I say, at some point in your career, you are probably going to wind up playing that star spot. So it wouldn't shock me if that's where CJ Hester winds up. Sharif Jensen's a pretty thin DB. Would fit that mold as well with 6'1", 175. I mean, you'd want to get him up to, 185, 190 at 6'1". But I typically look at those guys that are tweeners at DB, and I say, okay, Florida at some point is going to play them at star. Because star is oftentimes a mix of corner and safety. You got to do all the nitty-gritty work that safeties do while you have to cover like a corner. It's the middleman there. And so I think that's how I'm going to look at CJ Hester. Also got 3-star interior offensive lineman. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I looked up pronunciation, but Geneve Carr. I think that's how it's pronounced. Geneve Carr. We're just going to call him Carr. 3-star on 3 and 24/7. 4-star on ESPN and Rivals. IMG Academy, 6'4", 325 pounds. And he's the one that I alluded to earlier where I said, there's one guy I've spoken to quite a few people, and they think he's vastly underrated. Like, they really think that he's way better than a 3-star. They think he should be a high 4. Not that I care about rankings anymore. I've told you guys that. I'm overlooking them. I'll talk about them, but I don't care about them. So Geneve Carr is someone that I've spoken to many people who think that he's underrated, that he's a great football player, should be more heavily recruited. Florida, keep hammering away, keep going. You've got the leg up right now. Keep going at it, keep driving, keep getting them, and add to your interior offensive line, which would be beautiful for Florida. And would be a guy that I do think can, I still think he'll redshirt. He's said he doesn't want to redshirt his first year. I still think he'll redshirt, but I do think he'd be a redshirt freshman that contributes right after. So I would be looking at that. And then another IMG kid is 3-star tight end Kekua Aumua. Kekua Aumua is how I'm going to pronounce it. And I think that's how it is pronounced. He's 3-star everywhere. He's unranked on ESPN, but IMG 6'6", 257 pounds. And to me, I see 6'6", 257 pounds. And I think not like that's a pretty good frame for a high school kid. All right. But that also tells me that he'll probably be an inline guy because he's going to put on a good 20 pounds probably, right? Like 6'6", 257. In fact, I'm gonna pull up the roster right now as I'm talking to you. I'm gonna pull up the roster because again, I see 6'6", 257, and I think first off, that's a pretty big dude. But also, I think back to what Hayden Hansen was when he got on campus, because right now Hayden is listed as 6'7" 3/4 and 271 pounds. He's just a freaking tank. But in 2022, when he got to campus, 6'6", 256 pounds. Okay, 6'6", 256 pounds, and we're talking about Kekua Aumua, who is 6'6", 257 pounds. Same frame, 1 pound off. I look at you as an inline guy. Kekua also has officials set with Florida, North Carolina, BYU, and Washington. So far, there's going to be more expected to be added to it. But right now, that's the expectation of, or that's who's set so far. Again, we're talking about kids that right now are trying to be part of Florida, building the culture back. And I do think that we're looking at a team that, a program this summer, we might have one of those fun summers again. Not like 2024 where it was kind of dry. We might have like a 2022, 2023 summer. Okay? I'd be very excited. I am very excited for it. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free. Listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators basketball. We will be back tomorrow. We got a bonus show for you. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.